Woohoo! Guess who? This is Glow Lady. It is so nice to see you guys. We have plenty of people that are here today, and I'm getting an echo in here. Jeffrey is in the control room. Jeffrey DiCristofaro. He's been helping me a whole lot lately on different things here and there, and Richard Schulman, Camelot. I did not get a chance to get in there and get anything up. You should have seen how crazy it was, but it's the usual. What else is new? County Commissioners meeting. We went to the County Commissioners meeting this past week, and it was very, very interesting to say the least. And no, it is not going to be the last time. You see, we have our candles burning, and you can understand what those candles mean. Glow Lady's back. Okay, you know, it's like, why don't we cut the funding on war? You know, why do we have war? You know, I mean, we keep cutting education instead of the war, and it's like, the war on what? The war on drugs? And that's what we're going through right now. Jeffrey, you might want to check the sound. Put the headphones on, and they might need to go down just slightly. Yeah, check the soundboard in there. Yi Chang's, hey man, we love ya. We know you're still on vacation, and I hope that you're going to be back next week. So Jeffrey DiCristofaro is in the control room handling it all. You know how hard it was for me to give up control. Okay, we do have to crumble to rebuild. So, considering that, and we see all the crumbling going on, that's what we have to do. Hey, man, I'm not hearing myself talk. Can you still hear me over the air? Okay, bottom button needs to be pushed on in order to go over the air. As long as the bottom button on the soundboard is pushed in, it will go over the air. Cool? Yeah. 4. All the way on the bottom. They were pushed in, so unless you put them up, it's... We have fun around here, can you tell? Okay, faith not fear. How are you going to see it? One person can make a difference. The circle. From last week. He's also on the show with us today. We went to the circle to educate people, and we have some footage that we're going to be showing at a later date, not right now in time. And then we wonder about the criminal justice, you know, the profit of the disease and decay in society. How long, how far are we going to let it go? So Sunday, the circle over on Haywood Road in West Asheville. Well, it's West Asheville because you're going across the river, so I guess that's West Asheville. But where we were at last week, that's where we're going to be. I'm going to be there reading cards, and I look forward to that. So, something that was going on today, the House votes to bar Planned Parenthood from federal funding. I stand with Planned Parenthood. I stand with that's a tongue twister. I stand with Planned Parenthood. And if you don't stand up with Planned Parenthood, then you know what that means. That means that we're going to have a whole lot of little kids running around, and that's where I first started. You know, come on, man. If it's a good thing, why mess it up? You know, I mean, that's kind of why we're here today. And go ahead, Jeffrey. You can bring it in on camera 1. And you know what, Jeffrey? Can you come and fix this camera better, because I you know me. Wait a minute. I get a better idea. Switch to camera 3, please. And I am going to let my my trusty co-host. He's filling in for Shannon, yeah, camera 3. There we go. Dr. Milton Bird, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. Glow Lady, I should say. Check the camera. To my right, Billy Cates,
How we doing?
Industrial Director for the North Carolina Cannabis Patient Network. Gene Marlowe, Executive Director for the North Carolina Cannabis Patient Network. And of course, I'm Medical Director for the North Carolina Cannabis Patients Network. That's our introduction. And we are going to take some calls, hopefully at some time during the show. We want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the legislative actions that are being initiated in Raleigh for medical marijuana. And at this point, I'd like to ask Gene to go ahead and make some comments.
We're very excited about this bill. We hope that it's going to pass this year. The bill will be introduced, and what happens with the bill? That once a bill is introduced and brought into the General Assembly, it goes through drafting. They make sure that it's formatted properly. They make copies for all of the different legislators. And then after that, the bill goes to different committees. Normally, the bill is sent to appropriations, but since our bill doesn't take any money from the state to implement it, it's a revenue generator, it'll go straight into a different committee. It can go to Judicial Committee, it can go into the Health Committee, or it can go to Finance. And we feel that the bill's going to have bipartisan support. We're going to have support on both sides of the aisle. It will have 6 sponsors, a minimum of 6 sponsors when it's introduced. And since North Carolina has one of the largest populations of veterans, and the VA, one of the federal organizations, has recognized last summer, they recognized that cannabis is a medicine. They've understood cannabis therapies, and they changed the VA directive to allow for its use. They won't let people take medicines away from veterans anymore in states where it's allowed. So we're hoping that that will help influence them, as well as the AMA, and also the Health and Human Services is now researching and reviewing the latest science from the Cannabis Therapeutics Conference that was in Rhode Island in April. And specifically for traumatic head injuries and PTSD, they're looking at those, as well as chronic pain. And with that science, Health and Human Services is getting ready to make a decision as far as the rescheduling petition nationwide, so doctors will be able to write prescriptions for cannabis.
Thank you, Gene. To know, one of the legislators has brought up the subject about PTSD and trying to get specific recognition in the state for best practice of prescription for cannabis for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, that was a senator from Wisconsin. He actually asked that it be recognized as a full debilitating condition, so that states that do not recognize psychological disorders for medical marijuana will be able to understand this is a debilitating condition, and that way they will be included.
Thank you, Gene. That's quite a bit of information. I would like people to realize that if you really do have an understanding of medical cannabis as an appropriate choice of best practice in therapy for medical use, then you should reach out and communicate to your legislators that you are in position of support. Please contact them. We're also looking at the issue of economy with jobs, with economics of the income that it can represent for tax revenue in the state of North Carolina, with a $3.7 billion deficit right now, and we're looking at serious to significant drastic cuts at all levels of government, from the state all the way down to local, because we're hearing it at county commissioner meeting as well as the cities. We have to come back and focus on the issue of creating job markets, creating an economic stability. And I want to open the door for Billy Cates over here, our industrial director, to talk a little bit about the industrial development for non-medical, and then looking at it from some ideas that you may have in your head, Billy.
Well, the non-medical aspect of it, well, if you look at the trickle-down effect of the medical overnight, this bill will create 1,000 jobs in this state.
Overnight?
Overnight.
1,000 jobs.
There's 100 counties in this state. There's 10 people in each county, that's 1,000 jobs, just for caregivers and growers.
Yeah.
That's not counting the trickle-down effect that that'll have in the economy versus where they'll have to be buying nutrients, lights, soil, buckets, and the trickle-down effect, they're going to hire people to operate these stores and stuff. There's jobs just waiting with this bill.
Well, one of my concerns, if I may be so bold on it, Billy, is the
Sorry, I
fact
can't turn that far.
that it needs to be an initiative for the people, by the people, and with the people. The aspect of creating an industry that is actually community-supported agriculture that actually creates a local sustainable economy. My concern is corporate controls over the development of such a massive industry, and we're looking at least a $1.2 billion industry first year.
First year.
Well, you look at North Carolina farmers here, just in western North Carolina farmers. You look how many of these apple growers, now the contract is in China, they don't have the contracts. You have all these regulations being put so that the little small family farms can't grow. They can't go through the regulations and jump through all the hoops it takes to get into these corporate GMO, seed that they have to buy each year because it won't regenerate itself. These farmers, everything that you see, everything in your home can be made from hemp and made better than what we have today. From the wood, the fuel, the fiber, the paper, the plastics can be made from hemp. Packaging can be made from hemp. Clothing, it makes the best clothes in the world. The original Levi jeans were made with hemp. America was discovered because of hemp. If the rigging on that ship had not been hemp, and the sailcloth on those ships had not been hemp, they could not have withstood the elements to come all the way across from Spain to come here.
Well, if I may interject something here, and this goes back to the industrial issue. 20 years ago, I remember as a civic leader when we were having the NAFTA come about and we were losing industries here.
Yes.
Textile industries disappeared. This gives an opportunity to reestablish textile development with hemp production. It's one of those restorations of manufacturing that North Carolina can be very solid in acting on with a local resiliency and focus. And that comes back to the patient's rights, the human rights of having it available for the people, by the people, and with the people.
Safe, legal access.
Well said.
And
Safe,
I'd
legal
like to
access.
reach out personally and speak to anyone who's in the medical community. If you could see the people who have bravely invited me into their homes, I have seen people on their deathbed who are living in abject fear that a cop's going to walk in the door.
Right.
Or that one of the housekeepers is going to tell on them and they're going to die in prison instead of at home because their doctor told them that, well, you're going through chemo. If you can get a hold of, well, doctor, can you help me find it? No.
Right.
Well, where do I get? I can't tell you that.
Well, I can even reflect back to, I had an aunt back in 1966, and her son was a DEA agent. Mm-hmm. She had terminal cancer, and cannabis was one of the things that gave her a quality life. And I remember very much as a young man watching her
Well, these
endure.
doctors need to understand and at least pick up the phone and ask their personal legislator to support this, because you don't want one of your patients laying in their home suffering, scared to death.
I absolutely agree.
You really don't want that. You know, these doctors don't want it. The nurses see it all the time. They have to deal with it. It should not be done. And if we don't call our legislators and tell them that we want this legislation, we've got people that our oldest patient is 99 years old.
So they've been using it that long?
No, it's just that he realized as he got older
Because if he was
That-
99, then he would have been
Able to use it
able
legally.
to use it when he was younger. It
Oh,
would
he
not have been-
remembers when it was legal, yes.
But he never used it at that time, or you don't know.
Well, he was young, and he says his mother took the Lydia Pinkham's the pink pills for ladies' ills, and that it had cannabis in it because it was wrote right on the package. He
Right.
remembers it.
Right.
And he remembers it being in a lot of medicines, and he remembers, I mean, he knows it's illegal. But he also says he's 99. He don't care what they think.
Right.
You know, that,
Right.
you know,
it's
that
making his
he-
life better.
that it gives him a quality of life, and he can get up and tend his garden that day so he can have something to eat that year. You know, and
Wow, he's still producing his own
and
food.
we've had patients who, like Buddy Talley, he was 88 years old, had suffered severe neuropathy in his feet, pain because he was in World War II and carried these heavy packs, and it damaged the nerves in his feet. That man called his legislator. The man told him it would never happen,
Right.
and that gentleman died saying all he wanted was his dignity back. That he was not a criminal, he
Right.
just hurt.
Right. Right.
We've got people who come to us and call us all the time who are in their 70s, 80s, who have never smoked in their life. They need the medibles. We've got,
I've had people ask me, well, what's the difference between?
There's total difference.
Well, that's something that we need to
well,
explain to
the medibles, let me explain it this way. When you smoke cannabis,
people. Okay.
it goes up like this and then it comes back down.
Okay, you're talking about
Your
when
pain
it goes
relief
effect.
level goes up.
Okay.
The muscle spasticity, the smooth muscle, will smooth out, and it'll go up, and it'll last for about an hour, and then it starts weaning itself back down.
Okay.
When you eat cannabis
Right.
and you use it in a medicinal preparation,
Uh-huh.
it's like after about 30 minutes you eat it, you notice that you start feeling a little better, and that's it.
Right.
You just feel good, and it lasts for
And
about
that's-
4 or
and
5
that's
hours.
what you call the high of.
The medible.
You just
it's not a
feel
high.
It's not a high.
It's not a high.
Yeah, you're
it's
talking
not a high.
THC for the psychoactive.
Right.
You're just realizing
It's
that.
not a high.
But what makes you high is tetrahydrocannabinol,
Okay.
which is one chemical.
And that's the THC.
Yes.
Right. And
Okay.
cannabis has 400 and something different chemicals.
Okay.
They have recently found through research that not only THC, I mean, it makes you high,
Right.
but the cannabinoids, the CBCs, the CBDs, the cannabinoids, the
Anandamide.
terpenes, all of these things have effect. They've found now that just from growing it, the shiny surface that comes on the leaves as it's in the flowering form,
Okay.
that shiny, oily substance that's on those leaves, they have found is the best anti-inflammatory known to man.
So is that where the hemp oil comes from?
That's where the medicine starts building
Oh.
and developing, even
Okay.
into the leaves. That's where you can get it off of those leaves, and it can make
whole
a medicine.
plant.
Is it kind of like cocoa, where by taking the leaf, I mean, not to say it's the same effect as, but where is it that they chew the cocoa leaves? So if you're saying that you take the leaf and you're rubbing it, is that the same type of?
No, it's not the same way.
Different relationship.
You take this oily substance
Okay.
that grows on it, and you manage to get it out or cook it out, and you extract it into a butter, which has
Okay.
to be a fat substance,
Okay.
which is usually organic butter is the best.
Okay.
And you extract it into this.
So you can't do it with a dried plant. It has to be somebody who grows it.
You
would
can
have
take
the
a handful
best,
of
is that
those
right?
leaves,
Uh-huh.
throw them in a basket, and make iced tea with them.
Right. Now,
And
is
you-
that dried or fresh? It's like
Dried.
that. So, okay, so, but
Once
the
they're
first
dry
one
with
that you
the-
were talking
the
about with
oil.
the oil.
Right.
Does it have to be a fresh leaf, or is it a dried
No, you
leaf?
can let it dry with that oil on it.
Okay,
And you can just take a handful and put it on top of your tea bag.
right,
Make you a gallon of tea
Right.
and drink that tea.
Right.
You're not going to get high.
right.
but it's going to give you the anti-inflammatory effect of
Your
those
muscles
medicines.
will relax, your joints will
You
feel
will
better.
not get high at all.
Cannabis saved my life. I broke my neck in 1999 and had to have my
Right.
spine fused back together. 5, 6, and 7. Was on 9.5 years of workers' comp. I was on 4 grain Dilaudid a day, 4, 10, 6, 50 Percocets a day for breakthrough pain, Ambien, Vox, Flexeril, and Celebrex.
All of them at
All
once?
of them at once. I took 12
So that probably
pills
really
a day.
screwed up your liver.
I weighed 260 pounds in 2008.
We both have gone through the same journey. We've
When
talked
we
about
met
that.
Billy,
Yeah,
he
we've
sat
both
on the
been down that
couch and
road.
drooled on
I
himself.
never left the house. One day a month, I went to my doctor and got my script refilled. One day I was at home and I saw Montel Williams talking about medical
Right.
marijuana.
Right.
And
Thank
I got
you,
on-
Montel.
and I get- yeah, thanks, Montel. And I got on the internet. I love the internet.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
find
me-
out
me
anything
too.
about
You got
anybody on
it.
the internet.
You got it.
And I found out about Gene. I got in touch with Gene. And
That was how long ago?
2007.
2007. I had
2007.
just started the
So I'm-
Americans
yeah.
for Safe Access chapter here in Western North Carolina, and he found me.
Yeah. And
I mean, the day the website went up is the day Billy called.
Wow.
so,
Talk about divine, huh?
it was a good day.
It
yeah.
was intended.
Yeah, it was intended. So that was in October, and I told him I didn't have a drug test until January.
Right.
That's when I told my doctor at pain management. I said, look, I'm able to use this medical grade cannabis, or medical marijuana, and not having to take as many opiates.
Right.
And I'm functioning better. And he went flipped out. You know, marijuana's illegal in this state. You test
Right.
positive, I'll cut off
No, no,
all
this
your
is with the VA?
medications. No, this is with the pain management doctor in Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't associated with the VA?
No, not with the
Because,
VA.
I've heard the same story.
It's the same.
with
It's the same story with
VA.
anybody.
Well-
If you're on pain medication,
Right.
you sign a contract.
Right.
I never signed that contract.
Oh.
But I told him that I was using this and it was helping my pain. And
Right. So you were honest to the doctor?
yeah, I was honest to the doctor. I was like, look, this is working. You know, I've been on
Right.
workers' comp for 9.5 years. You know, I'd been dealing with nothing but doctors.
Right.
You know, they'd tried everything.
Wow.
They'd done steroid epidural injections. They'd done lidocaine. They'd done fentanyl patches. You know, I mean,
Right.
it was workers' comp. They were guaranteed to get their money.
He
Right.
thought he was just going to sit there and eat his liver alive.
Yeah, that's and
pills.
that's what brought that's
Yeah,
what
that
really
many.
awoken me to it. Was one day I asked him, I was like, why are we doing these liver tests every 3 months? They're like, because of the medication, it could kill you.
Right.
So in January when I told him this, you know, and he's like, well, you know, if you I told him I was been using it, and he said, well, he said, if you quit, he said, you know, he said, I won't drug test you again until October.
Right.
I said, well, what do you suggest? He said, an increase in medication. So I left there that day in January with an increase up to 5 4-grain Dilaudid a day.
So he increased you instead
increased
of
my-
saying,
yeah, right,
okay, yes,
right.
I can see, I can
Right,
acknowledge it's
right,
working.
Right. So I weaned myself off between January and October. In October, I walked back in there, but during this time, he'd been noticing, wow, your blood pressure's going down, you're losing weight. I'm down to 184 pounds now.
Right.
I'm a happy little man. And I told him, I said, you know, he could see all this happening. And in October, I told him, I'm not coming back. You know, you tried to kill me.
Really?
And I had to make a choice
So
with
you
workers'
got
comp.
to the point where it's like, okay, I'm feeling good enough that
Well,
I'm
no,
going to
no,
take myself?
no, I had to make a choice. Workers' comp said because I was refusing to go back
Right.
to take those pills, I was
Right.
refusing medical treatment,
Oh,
which meant
wow.
they had the right to terminate my case.
Right.
Unless I decided to take a small settlement where they'd wash their hands of me and I could go on and smoke
And
my
you
pot,
could-
as
and
they
you
say.
can live.
Their exact words was, and you can go on and smoke your marijuana. I was like, okay. So that was in
So they
2008.
don't even want to acknowledge that here's a chance
Well,
that you might be better.
In 2008, when I settled up, I went to file for my disability.
Right.
And my work credits had expired while I was on disability, so I can't
Right.
get disability. But it's okay because I'm working now. I got a job. I'm doing something they told me I'd never do again.
Work.
Right, job,
Wow.
paying job, legal paying job.
A legal pay.
Legal paying job with a paycheck. That's a good. That's right.
So they wanted
Pillar
you to
of the
do
community.
drugs and kick back and
They wanted me
and-
just to take the
And when
pills,
his
stay at home.
doctor
I was
cut
drawing
him off.
$450 a week workers' comp.
Well,
That's
how
nothing to
much?
sneeze at. $450 a week. I drove a tractor and trailer for 25 years.
You were bringing home 400.
450 workers' comp. That's 66 and 2/3% of my gross income. So it was, I mean, it was 9.5 years. They couldn't find me a job. They kept saying, no, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
Well, let me add some scientific stuff to the back end, because as a physician, and
Okay.
having gone the same road, I went up to 318 pounds and doing those opioids for pain management and all that, and it was destroying my life too. Through looking at the scientific research and data out there for the last 20 years, it's not just this past 2 years, it's 20 years of research out there to look at. I'd like to quote Dr. Sunil Agarwal, who presented to the World Pain Congress back in August 2010, that his research has demonstrated through the University of Washington that cannabis for neuropathic pain, which is the scenario we're talking about here, is 10 times more effective than any pain medication that is being prescribed. Now, we see clearly this is not best practice because those medications have extreme side effects, detrimental to the point of death, and it's well documented in people dying from those prescriptions. Cannabis is demonstrated to be so much more effective with almost no side effects in comparison. It's not toxic, and that's where the real issue comes from those prescriptions. They create toxic side effects which literally break down the body to a point of death.
The federal government had to come up with, the Department of Justice had to come up with a toxicity level for cannabis.
Right.
An LDL, a lethal dose level. So they commissioned Harvard Medical University to do this study.
Okay.
And Harvard Medical said there's no such thing as an overdose level. We can't find one.
Oh, really? So there's no...
And they go, well, okay, well, you have to give us a toxicity level.
Right.
And they go, okay. So they do it. And the Harvard Medical and the Department of Justice says to get a toxic dose of cannabis, you have to smoke 1,500 pounds in 15 minutes. And I have tried for years,
Well,
and
I
it's
thought
not
that was
possible.
24 hours. Now, it's 15
In
minutes?
15 minutes, 1,500 pounds in 15 minutes.
And the clear
And
point's
it
impossible.
might make you sick.
Let me see. How many drinks can I drink? How many drinks did I used to drink in 15 minutes, and where did it take me?
But now just think how many people we've got calling us on a regular basis. I mean, full-grown men calling me in tears going, Miss Marlowe, please, can't y'all make them pass this bill? My pain management doctor won't let me off this medicine. He won't let me use cannabis. This stuff's killing my liver. I can't control myself no more. You know, my stomach hurts, my head hurts. These pills are killing me. What can we do? And you just don't know what to tell them. All we know to tell them is that everybody out there who has a heart, everybody who would say, if that was the person on this planet that I love more than I love myself, and the doctor said they needed cannabis for medicine, would I go get it for them? And you tell yourself yes, then you get off yourself and pick up the phone and call your legislator and say, please do this because people out here need it.
Yeah, we got to be careful about telling that's like, we can't tell our audience to do anything.
Oh, we can't tell them to call.
No.
Well, there's
Well,
one
we
thing
can
I can
ask them,
say
please
to
call.
tell.
Okay. All right, Mel.
I'm telling medical physicians to get in contact with me. If you want to be educated
Oh, yeah, you can do that.
on the state,
Yeah.
the state of best practice.
To get a hold of Mel.
Yes,
I mean,
as medical
usually it's
director
like to
and
get a hold of
physician.
me, but since he's going to be like a producer too, you know, we can, yeah.
Yes. Well, the
Yeah.
point here is that medical professionals need to be caught up to speed that this really is the next step in best practice. And physicians understand what that means. That means best practice for patient care.
Well, another thing, the doctor who discovered the cannabinoid receptor in the brain was a doctor from North Carolina, Dr. Allen Hallett at Wake Forest University. If this law passes, every university in this state will have access to high-quality organic medicine that they can run tests on.
Wow.
They can pick it up at any dispensary.
Well, where do they get it?
Now they can't get it without jumping through all kind of hoops. They have to go to the University of Mississippi and get it, and there's very limited studies they allow to be done with it.
Okay, now, who did the studies that the government has in order to get a patent on it?
Oh, that was done by Dr. Raphael Meshulam in Israel
Oh,
at
in
the
Israel.
Hebrew
Wait a minute,
Hebrew
how did
University
our government get a patent on it then?
because he works for us. He works.
He works for us? But
He
he's
works
over-
for the federal
But
government.
he
I mean,
lives
he's
in
doing.
Israel?
Well, yes.
Well, there's
Well,
international research going on.
This
Yeah, but
doctor.
it's like,
This is
why
the same
is
doctor.
it hidden or something?
This is the same doctor who isolated the THC,
Right.
tetrahydrocannabinol, back in the 60s.
Right.
His name was Raphael Mechoulam. He's been very interested in cannabis
Okay.
medicines.
So they're going
And
out of the
he's
country to get
interest-
research.
And he's interested in brain damage
Okay.
research. And
Okay.
the reason that Dr. Mechoulam came to the Cannabis Therapeutics Conference and talked about this was he was just so overwhelmed about this one case. And he said that the federal government had agreed to release his research, and they didn't. And he said, they're funding me. They know exactly what I'm doing. He says, don't let your government tell you they do not know this is medicine. They're funding my research.
So he started stepping out and saying, hey, this is, and
Because he cares about
the
what
people.
his research
Right,
and the fact
right.
that it can, I mean, he personally saw this thing. He used a pure cannabis extract with a person who had been damaged with a severe brain injury, head injury.
Right.
And he said this patient suffered no ill effects whatsoever.
right.
And he was so amazed by how this could benefit people in traumatic head injury situations that's why he released it, because he is compassionate. He's a caring doctor. And the doctors in North Carolina need to be able to find out all these other research about the cannabinoids, the cannabinoid system, the endocannabinoids. Our body has a cannabinoid system. We make our own cannabinoids.
I
So
find
it's not unusual or surprising at all that human beings want cannabis, because you're
I'm trying to figure out
sound
who's.
came from over there.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, we hear a speaker, but it's one
you're
of the.
giving yourself
It's one
the
of the mics that's feedback. and-
Whose is on the floor? Somebody's box is on the floor. Okay, we have a mystery sound. Well, let me interject something here. There are various patents the federal government has, but the one I really find interesting was done October 7th, 2003 by the federal government, where the patent on cannabinoids and cannabis is for antioxidant and neuroprotectants. Now that's clearly in the realm of nutrition and medicine. So we see this post-traumatic stress disorder, head injuries, neuropathic pain, any type of nerve damage pattern here, where the research is showing that cannabis therapy is very effective for managing those neurological conditions, and the antioxidant factors play a very large role in the endocrine system for energy balance. The current research showing of over 100 chemicals of cannabinoid chemicals that are impacting the metabolic balance in the human body. Much research is going on. There's over 1,500 articles of research out there right now that you can research straight over the internet. The point is, right now, not only the people, but our medical professionals, our legislators need to see this education. We need to have best practice. We need to have the resources focused for the people, by the people, with the people, and the industry itself of growing it.
Well, and that's another thing. We've had law enforcement, sheriffs, actually call saying, can you give us some kind of educational material? Can you help us to understand this bill and how it's going to be implemented? Can you tell us what is a legitimate patient, what is not? Can you help us? The fact that law enforcement is reaching out with concern,
Yes.
because they have to live in these communities
Yes.
and they deal with these people. And a lot of the times, like my sheriff, I mean, he's had to deal with me for 20 years. I mean, people go say, you know that Jean Marlowe, she smokes marijuana. He goes, well, yeah, she puts it in the paper regularly. It's...
Well, I mean, and that's
But
what I talk about. It's like, it takes one to stand up to make a difference. I mean, you're willing to stand up and say, hey,
Well, I have to.
well, that's it. If you don't, who will?
Well, not just that, but I was born with a rare liver disorder. If I do not smoke cannabis, my liver will not function normally.
Yeah, no, I think it might be genes. We have one of the wires that wants to go wacky every now and then on the box.
Oh.
So that might be, yeah.
I'd like to point two things out. First off, if I may go to when we were at the Circle recently. We'd done some videotaping of people's testimonies.
Yeah.
And one of the testimonies, I'll just say Tim, talked about his family social history. Now, Tim has a father who, when he was growing up, used cannabis for his medicine. And his family treated him as a criminal. They actually looked down on him as a criminal. They spoke to him as a criminal. His very own son actually rejected his father over the fact that he was a criminal because of cannabis use, marijuana use, for his medical condition. He, through most of his growing up years, that he treated him as, I mean, he was an outcast. He has now learned in his 30s that his father was utilizing medicine to help him. It was his best practice he could find, and his father is now his hero. But he had to go through almost 25 years of looking at social stigma in his very own family, the father did, in regards to using this, and yet he knew in his own experience that it was the best medicine approach for him. Now, I want to come back to the physicians. The thing is, physicians don't have the education yet looking into the endocannabinoid system, their current level of research, and the understanding in general practice of how this should be applied in patient care for best practice. We want to help educate you. I, as medical director, am pulling together that research. I look forward to working with you. Please reach out to us.
And there's online classes. The Patients Out of Time from the Cannabis Therapeutics Conference, along with the University of San Francisco, they have online classes for any medical professional.
Oh, really?
That they can.
Okay, so that's just for the medical professionals, or
Well,
is it
it's
anybody who-
$75. You can take the class. It may be more than that now, but it actually talks about illness-specific different medications.
Right.
It talks about risk.
Oh, so it's actually telling the truth,
It-
and,
yeah,
and the
it talks
FDA
about-
didn't come down on it?
No.
Really?
Well,
Because
they
I
can't
We
thought,
stop
didn't invite
education.
them.
I mean, it's a freedom of speech.
yeah, but there's a lot of books out there with, was it Kevin Trudeau, who they were trying to shut him down because, and he was mostly natural healing.
Oh, well, Peter McWilliams and Todd McCormick were writing a book on illness-specific different strains and how it helped different. And they put Todd in federal prison.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And because Peter was so sick, they put him on federal probation, and he wound up dying on probation.
Wait a minute, because they were writing a book?
Yeah. But they were writing a book about this, about illness-specific medications.
Because they were doing the
and they were
research
doing
on
the
it?
research. And in
'Cause
California.
that's the illegal component.
But they were in California.
Without a license, is that?
No, they were doing it in
That's
California.
just like me.
It's just that.
Coming off telling pain management and being
Right,
done with that doctor
right.
since 2008, I use only cannabis to medicate.
Right.
They
No
did
longer go
not
to the
want
doctor,
this
don't
book
take any of those
released.
pills. That's all I use is cannabis, and
They
can't
didn't
tell me
want
that
it.
didn't work. I
Right.
mean, I'm better.
Right, but okay,
I still hurt. I
so
still
doing the
have-
research on yourself, you can do
Right.
that. But weren't they just gathering the information?
No,
Or were
but
they
see-
supplying the cannabis also?
Well, they were supplying it. Also, they were growing
Because
it
they
and
were
using
doing-
it
they
as
were
part of the
doing a-
research. But it's
right,
okay in
right.
California. The
Oh,
thing of
okay.
it was the book was an illness-specific book.
Right, right.
And that's where it got into which strains are for which particular illnesses. And
And they get
for
put
some
in
reason, they
prison.
did not want that information released.
Well, of
And
course
they put Todd in federal
Is he
prison.
still in prison?
No, but he spent 5 years in,
He
or
spent
right at
5
4 years in
because
federal
he
prison.
wrote a book
Because he
that
wrote a
could
book.
help how many millions of people?
Because he
I mean,
wrote a
that's
book.
that's where the problem lies. When we have you know that only a
Peter
drug
died.
can cure a disease, and we have our government telling us that we have to do this, and with the health care and everything, people, if we don't stand up, you know, and don't say that you can't make a difference, because the one who doesn't make a difference is the one not willing to try.
Well,
So-
you see, the problem has always been,
Right.
why would our corporate world
Because it's all about the
Why-
profit. You
yeah,
didn't know
but
that?
why would our corporate world want you to have access to something that you can take a seed and grow your own medicine,
Because that's
grow
the
your own
profit.
food, grow your own
Right.
shelter,
Right.
grow your
Take
own
care of
clothes?
yourself and don't go
They don't want
Right.
you to know this.
Right.
It's a bad weed.
Right.
It's an evil demon weed. Don't you believe what them folks is telling you? It's a bad weed.
Well, you're bringing out the example of the prohibition mindset that's been imprinted on our society for 80 plus years now. The realization, as a good example of dealing with physicians, that the federal government tried to suppress physicians trying to have discussion and research on this, and physicians, the AMA, took it all the way to the Supreme Court. Federal government cannot tell medical professionals what is best practice. This is for their medical professional determination,
Yeah, the
not for the
Supreme
government.
Court. Yeah, that
Yep.
was in Conant versus the U.S. government, and there is the Supreme Court made a ruling that any doctor in any state has the right to discuss anything they want to in the privacy of the exam room. They can recommend, they can say they don't mind if they use, they will monitor their use, but they cannot prescribe it. But they can discuss it legally in any state, because that lies under your rights of privacy and First Amendment's rights to free speech in the privacy of your exam room with your physician.
Patient rights.
And that's Supreme Court made that ruling. So all doctors can discuss this. My doctor here in Asheville, went to court for me, called the warden at the prison where I was sent and blessed him out. I mean, that he did call the U.S. Marshal's office. He did everything.
That you need to have.
That I need this medicine. He told him, I don't know why it makes her liver work the way that it does.
Right.
But I do know, I have documented this through the Mayo Clinic. The only normal liver function test I can get from this woman is when she uses cannabis. And I personally think it is because of the microcapillary circulation that is involved in the liver. And the judge in the case, due to my doctor's credentials, ruled that he could testify in any federal court in the country as an expert witness in internal medicine. So, you have some doctors who really understand this, and you have some doctors who have been told that it's not true.
I'd like to point something out for physicians. They now literally do have the right to do a letter of recommendation for the use of cannabis. That does not give prescription, but that is recognizing the patient's rights to such a medication. And any physician in the United States can do a letter of recommendations. One of the things we need to look at is creating the medical defense, the justification of patient rights, human rights, for appropriateness of best practice in medication.
Yeah, my recommendation in North Carolina also says if it was legal for him to do so, he would have prescribed it for me. But since it's not, he is recommending I continue to use it.
So he can't. Now there is some medical cannabis that are grown by the government, correct?
Yes,
And that's for
4 people.
for where?
4 people and researchers.
4 people.
And
Oh, 4 people?
They were, it
4
was up
people.
to 13 at one time,
There's 4 of them left now.
but there's only 4 left.
That are allowed
And they
to
started it-
legally.
And
Yes.
now that marijuana is grown at the University of Mississippi at a
Right.
private location.
Okay.
They have private truckers who pack it up,
Wait a minute. 4 people, and you're talking how much?
and it's trucked to Raleigh.
In a
No.
truck?
Yes,
A tractor
and a
trailer
tractor
truck.
trailer sends it, and
For 4
goes.
people?
It goes to Research Triangle
So that's
Park
like a
in
joke
Raleigh.
or what?
Under federal
When it
interstate
gets
commerce.
there-
No.
It
They
is-
escort it?
That's the raw,
You'll never-
the
you'd
raw
never know
stuff.
it was them.
When it gets there,
Really?
it is ground up, it is rolled, it is packaged, and then it is freeze dried.
And
Yeah.
then what do they do with it?
And then they put it in these great big, they're about this big around,
Tins.
tin cans. It looks
Okay.
like the big old Christmas cookie tins.
Right.
It's like this. And those 4 people, for free,
Right.
for medicine
Right.
from the state of North Carolina
Right.
is shipped 300 marijuana cigarettes every single month for medicine.
That's 10 a day.
Holy mother! Well, what do they sit there? Stone, as they call it?
This is,
No, the one who's been getting it the longest is a stockbroker in Florida.
Right.
Every person that is one of his clients knows that he's one of the federal patients, and they know that he is smoking 10 or 12 joints a day, and he's handling their life savings. And they trust him. They're happy, good, just happy campers.
That's just like when I was
Because
on all those.
He has
that's
no
what
problem.
he needs. He
That's-
needs in
that's
order
just
to
like
That's the
operate.
only way he
All
can
those pills.
function.
Okay.
I'd like to point out,
Narcotics will mess you up where you can't function. That's the bad part about all those narcotics.
Okay.
Pharmaceuticals is the side effects. Some people have side effects, some people don't.
Right.
I mean, you watch any commercial, they tell you all about the side effects. After it's gonna make your life so much better. If it wasn't for medical cannabis,
Right.
I wouldn't be able to be here. I'd have to be at the house on the couch,
Wow.
slobbering in the corner.
Slobbering in a corner.
And like the guy that's
That's
the stockbroker, if you put him on as much medication as what it would normally take for someone in his condition, he couldn't function.
Right.
right,
But it wouldn't do no good
Right.
because the fact that cannabis causes the smooth muscle to relax on top of the knots in his at the
Right.
end of his bones
Okay.
is why.
he has tumor issues.
As the tumors grow out the end of the bone and he moves his arms,
Right.
the cannabis relaxes that smooth tissue and
Okay.
smooth muscle,
right.
so it moves without cutting it. That would not happen with a prescription drug.
Right.
But he can move his hands without it cutting and him bleeding to death
Oh, wow.
because it tears the blood vessel inside and he can get a blood clot.
So, I mean, that sounds like an extreme case that it's helping, and it's like with you being that's the only thing that they have found to help you. Why can't you get medical cannabis?
Well, because in 1991, when George Bush Sr. was president,
Okay.
he got ready to leave office. He was voted out in November, and between November and him leaving office in January, he closed the compassionate IND program to any new cannabis applicants.
So that's why there's only 4 people left.
Yes.
So
Yes,
we're
I
And
wish
they're
Obama would
grandfathered
address
in.
that.
They can never stop it. They can never take it away from them. They're grandfathered in, but they just live until they die. And then when those 4 die, they won't be giving it to nobody else. See, Robert Randall's dead now.
Right.
Corinne Millet's dead now. But Elvie Masika's still alive. She gets it for glaucoma.
Right.
Barbara Douglas is alive. She gets it for MS.
Okay.
George McMahon gets it for nail patella syndrome, which is a severe syndrome.
So all of them had different ailments.
Yes,
So
and
there is studies of their ailments and how, or it was just to give them a comfortable life.
well, there's studies that have proven
Right.
that's why Robert Randall sued the government when, I mean, he was growing his own and
Okay.
they arrested him. He lived in Washington, D.C., and when they came
Okay,
and arrested
they gave
him,
medical marijuana.
well, that's because he sued them. He was just growing it because he knew it
Okay,
helped
okay,
him.
it wasn't one of the 4. I mean.
He was the
Not at the
first
time.
one.
He was-
He's
he was
patient
Number one.
zero.
That's how it started.
He's from back in the 70s. He's the one that started it.
I know we only have a couple minutes left, and I want to
I'm
put
sorry.
something out there in front of the camera.
Man, yeah.
The President of the United States has the authority to open that resource of investigation that got shut down by President Bush. I would encourage President Obama to take a look at reopening up that investigative route for patient application for cannabis. The federal government needs to step up to be for the people, by the people, with the people in this action. Please, Americans, share your voice with the federal government, the President of the United States, the Governor of North Carolina, and every physician you see. Thank you.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, but now guess what? My mic is now on, and I've got to go back in the control room so I can catch Kelly. So now that my mic is on and you can hear what all I said, but you know me, I have a big mouth, and I'm sure that you heard me anyhow. I'm going to let these two continue. Like I said, I'm going to go in the control room and get ready for Kelly's phone call. I thank you guys very much, and I know that we're not going to, it's not going to be the last that we see you. I look forward to co-producing with Mr. Milt here, or Dr. Milt here, a whole series so
Yes.
that we can really get in depth.
Could I announce it?
Yeah, because I'm going to shut my mouth. See you guys. We love you. Catch you next week.
We're looking to start an education series called The Sustainable Resolution, Cannabis and Hemp. This TV series will be a medical look at cannabis therapy, its sustainability, and the idea of the resolution is about the due process of legal. Any public citizen can go in front of an elected body and propose a resolution. I am doing that right now with the town of Fletcher. I look to be doing that with the Buncombe County Commissioners next month. And we've already done that with the Land of Sky Regional Council, which they refused to take a vote on because they did not get a second for the sponsor. We did have one motion, but it was not carried. The reason there? Fear, lack of information, lack of understanding. We are reaching out to you to do that, to give you the understanding, to work with it. So we're going to create this TV series. We're going to bring people on. We're going to discuss this with the public. So we will encourage you to call us in. We will provide scientific research data, everything from physician to the patient who has depression.
And I wanted to say one thing on the way in today to the studio. I got a call from one of our members. They were just calling to say hello and wish me luck, and I promised to give them a big wave. So, hello, all our members, get on the phone, call your legislators.
No, she didn't just give a call to action.
Yes, she did.
No, it just sounded like it.
Well, yeah, because we can't do those things on public
Be responsible for
TV.
yourselves, people. That's how we can, be responsible, people. If you want things to change, there's things that you got to do to change it. So, no call to action. We ain't calling stupid or smart.
How about educate, inform, and share?
Thank you.
And communicate.
Communicate. Key number one, communicate.
I really do believe this is the time and opportunity for Americans to reclaim their empowerment through their voice, as well as the process where we can all learn and build a better economy and ecology. This is a valuable resource that can be a tremendous tool for economic stability, jobs, products that actually represent sustainable, valued agriculture.
And citizen empowerment, it makes you feel good when you can take part in helping things change in your state for the better, the way you want them to be. It can make you feel good. So do what you have to do, learn what you have to learn, get the information you need, and let's get this done. Together we can do this.
So how are we doing on time there, Lisa? Have you got your call in yet? We want to keep talking a little bit more. Well, let me talk about the show briefly, that when we start producing this, we're going to look into bring in veterans, because veterans have a very big issue on best practice of medicine because of what's going on with the Veteran Affairs Administration. Because if you're caught with cannabis up until this fall, you would have been kicked out of programs for prescription. You would have been denied. Now it has been removed through the federal administration, I should say the Veterans Administration, for post-traumatic stress disorder and head injury. A very big component for veterans. We are looking at the shift of knowledge base moving in the direction that not only the veterans, but everyday citizens, from depression, from endocrine issues, from glandular problems, from neuropathic pain. The list is growing and growing because the extensiveness of the discovery of the endocannabinoid system in the human body is demonstrating that research needs to be more and more applied to the human event and its sustainability and our comfort. We have needs as human beings. People hurt, people suffer. Medicines of best practice and availability have their roots in herbalism, which is where pharmacology started. This is going back to the very premises of function that natural product brings about. Mother Nature knows more about taking care of our life than we do. We're only beginning to discover. Let us network our resources of education and information. Let's begin communicating about that at a level which can reform the healthcare system, bring it to a sustainable cost effectiveness, not an overwhelming expense that is destroying us.
I think that in this Asheville area, it's really going to take off because you've already got so much integrative medicine, you've got
Yes.
organics going on.
Yes.
Even people who have visited from the East go, oh my gosh, there's more organics in the stores out here. There are more organic grocery stores than we have in the eastern part of the state. So we know that it's ripe for natural foods, natural products, natural medicines. This area is ripe for it. And we want the citizens to just take part in making it part of their regular lives and helping bring this industry into the state. Think how many women who have always made cookies and cakes who could utilize, that we could utilize, and they could make them for these different medibles to be, you know, trained how to do it, to be put in the schools and learn how to make these things, and then they can make medicines for people. That's the way it used to be. The farmers, you'd go get your butter and your milk and your eggs right down the street from the farmer. Down
Local
the street, and you
resiliency, it's
knew
called.
'em. You know where to go and buy your tomatoes and how they grow their garden.
Well, I'd like to point out the green economy that's being discussed a lot right now, local resiliency, comes out of an initiative called the Transition Movement. There's over 5,000 communities in the United States that are looking at what's called transitional planning. There was a book written by Rob Hopkins out of England called The Transition Handbook about how to go from oil dependency, which we are past peak oil, into local resiliency by developing local economies that are sustainable. This is a very big tool, cannabis and hemp, that can help create that type of transition. There's a lot more to it than that, but we'll be talking about those things in this program called the Sustainable Resolution. We will be opening the door to look at how we can understand sustainable economy, understand medical practice that is integrated with holistic medicine. Thank you very much. We've done a good show. We have got a lot to do here, and we're wrapping up here. And I see Lisa waving her hands in the control room, and we have got coming to a closure here. I want to thank you, everybody. It's been a real pleasure and honor, and look forward to seeing you soon. This is Dr. Mill. This is Gene Marlowe. This is Billy Gates. We want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Blessings to you, and may it all work out from here. Bye.
here. Seems like the music faded. I'm going to trust. And hello, Asheville and beyond. This is Kelly M. Beard of Karmic Tools and Lunar Reflections, coming to you from sunny Florida. It's warming up here. From what I hear, it's all up the East Coast, so it's just gorgeous for the full moon, which I got to see rise yesterday on the beach with sunset. It was very delicious. I'm going to burn fire tonight. Most of you know I do a lot of ritual around full moon and new moon and in between for special occasions and that kind of thing. So the big news of today is the full moon, as well as sun moving into Pisces, which sets a new tone and things. But let's start with the full moon in Leo at the last degree. Very big deal. This is the fifth moon at the final degree, sometimes called the critical degree. And what that generally means is it's your last chance to get it right for now, not forever, but for now and for the next 6 months to a year. We have some energy that's being put in place that we get to work with. And we've talked about this because it's been 5 months of this already, where every full moon has been at the last degree. So I have a little sharing here. It's basically, theoretically, we've completed something around that. Aries full moon was completing something regarding your identity, and that was September, October time. And then you move along another month later, and a piece of Taurus gets put in place. When we had the Taurus full moon at the last degree, you were completing something regarding old values and priorities that were done and have shifted, and now we need to clear a space for new energy to come in. And then we move along another month, and so that was September, October, November, December, when it was a full moon in Gemini, and some kind of pattern of thinking got completed along the way. And Cancer full moon deals with the past and releasing that and tuning into your heart and your feelings, how you feel about all these changes, about all these completions, about all these endings. That's what the full moon generally brings, some state of completion on one level or another. And now the Leo full moon. Leo's lesson is all about self-love, radiating that light from your center out to the world. And so in this context, we're completing something around the creative energy and your own essence that you share within your relationships, within your community, within the world. So this is a lot. This means back to back to back for the last 5 months, and we still got another month to go before we get to spring equinox, and all kinds of new energy comes in to push us out to interacting with the world in ways that may be new and different for some. A lot of people that I'm doing readings for and that are crossing my path, me included, have been in another zone of life, working on different things, parenthood or business, or maybe a lot of caretaking of elderly parents that has gotten completed. Either the elderly parents have made their transition, and my child is 14, so he's getting ready to go to high school. That's a big transition, and there's just all this transition. So we have a lot of support for completing and releasing, but those who resist that are probably having a hard time, and the full moon does shine a light in the corner that's been suppressed, repressed, and pushed aside, things that you just don't have time to deal with because we're in everyday mode, survival mode, whatever you want to call it. We're moving along our path, doing the best we can in every given moment. And when the full moon comes, it gets everybody's feelings churned up, and sometimes you know exactly what it is, and sometimes you don't, and it's really uncomfortable. But we don't want to use it for that. We really want to dig into this and recognize the 6-month process we've been in that we're 5 months into now. So where do you want to be 1 month from now? Where do you want to be 6 months from now and 1 year from now? So let's look at this in the lunar cycle. We want to think 6 months ago was August, was the Leo new moon, and we definitely talked about anchoring a new identity for a lot of people, for getting more centered in your heart, knowing who you are, being able to stand on it. That came on the heels of that Mars retrograding through Leo, which extended a period of time where Mars, our action planet and our desire planet, what we really, really want in our deepest part of our hearts, was stimulated in excess of 6 months during the course of last year. So that was a lot. When we got to that new moon in Leo, which would have been around August time, we were new people. As individuals, there's a lot of pieces of the past that have been released already. So now theoretically, if you anchored a new heart-centered peace for yourself. You know, something that is really close to you that you don't want to deny anymore. You really want to live your truth and have the courage to be authentic in every moment. And we're all practicing in our own minds and hearts and our own practices, but also in reminding others. Family and friends usually lock us into a little box of definition that they're comfortable with. It may or may not even be real or any kind of real reality, but it's their perception of you, and they hold on for dear life because any changes to your identity is going to rock them along the way. So we already know the underlying theme of Saturn in Libra is rocking relationships at the base. That's vital right now. We are all questioning everything. Who are we? What do we want? Why are we here? Why are we interacting with these people? What's the motivation, and is it clean and pure? And are we really moving in the direction we want to move? And the full moon, like I said, gets everyone very sensitive to what either is completed and done and needs to be released, or that has run its full course already. It's gone as far as it can go, and now a decision or a choice needs to be made. So as we work on this month of really connecting to anything that blocks you from loving who you are, everyone has their own quirks. Everyone has their identity things, personality issues that, you know, the special little things that make you who you are. Now, I'm always advising my girlfriends that they need to find a man, those of them looking for a man, that finds their little isms and quirkiness cute and funny, because somebody who thinks it's cute and funny is going to love it, and other people that rubs the wrong way, you're just going to irritate each other. So let's keep it. The only way that people can honor that part of you is if you let it shine, and that's what the Leo energy always brings to the table. What kind of aspects of your being are you hiding from the world? That's not going to fly in the new realm, okay? We're really getting clean and pure, and transparency is becoming a kind of buzzword these days, but we want all motive to be obvious, and we want to know what we're working with and who we're working with and for and that kind of thing, so that we know we're all moving in a direction that we want to be moving in. This is the kind of energy that you could get carried away with on somebody else's. This is drama. Anytime Leo's involved, drama's involved. So are you caught up in other people's drama? Are you perpetuating your own drama? These kind of things come up during the full moon because, again, we're just so emotional and there's so much completion going on. And we are into the new year, and it is moving so fast. And if you haven't been organized, you're probably really uncomfortable. And most of us have just done the best we can. I wouldn't even call it organized. But if you can go with the flow, you're probably doing a little better than those who are very rigid and want it a certain way. Because we're in new territory, we've got to develop a completely new way. There is no certain way. There is no go-to guide. There's nothing in essence that we can rely on other than our hearts. And Leo always gets us very present to what's going on in our hearts. So what kind of piece of authenticity have you been hiding, either from yourself or others? This is the time to get down into that and really dig out anything that's undermining you. You want to think Leo's shadow is ego. So ego very often will undermine the very goals you say you want to accomplish. But because ego gets involved and it wants to be heard and it wants to be right and it wants to be understood, okay, anytime you're pressing people for this, oh, hear me, understand me, get it. I understand, I do. It's nice when people get it, but they don't always get it, and that cannot alter your center. If it's true and authentic and clean and good and pure and good for you as a human being, then you shouldn't be having to explain it or get it approved by anyone. And a lot of times this is the imbalance that gets created. So this weekend I want you to focus on releasing any self-love issues or blockages therein and tune in to what area of your life are you least authentic and what area of your life are you most authentic? Because there's a place, usually, hopefully there's at least one place that you feel safe enough to be yourself. And then, of course, we do all have our worldly mask and our boundaries and things that we go out into the world with. You always hear me activate the shields. And so, yes, there's a certain separation. But when you know who you are and you're just being yourself and it's delicious, this is the Leo thing about childlike versus childish. Children don't think that hard. Or how does this look, and what are they going to think, and da-da-da-da-da. Not until they get a little older. But that young child that represents Leo, which is that 6 to 10 range, where they're, capable of being on their own 2 feet, absolutely have their own ideas, super creative, don't really know what can go wrong yet, so they're still hopeful and optimistic and open and receptive. It's that openness. That's what we mean by childlike. We don't mean childish, wham, 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 look at me, it's all about me, serve me, help me, me, okay? Because the opposite of Leo is Aquarius, and Aquarius will be the first one to tell you that me needs to be converted to we. What are you contributing to the whole? But see, you can't even get that far if you're imbalanced. So we're really working the full moon and new moon, the sun, that annual cycle, and the lunar cycle, very personal. This is your inner and outer dynamics moving along every year. A very natural, same rhythm every year. You can get in tune with this, and you can start working with it. And I'm telling you, there's no turning back. Once you start seeing results of just 5 minutes of focusing your attention and your intentions in certain directions, you will start to see results and realize that you are co-creating as you go. And the Leo full moon is bringing so many things to the surface. So pay attention, because if you allow ego to lead, then generally a fall from grace, or some kind of embarrassment, because like I said, ego's the shadow part of Leo. That's that pridefulness, that I'm above it thing, and I shouldn't have to deal with this little petty stuff over here. Well, guess what? We're all here, we're all in it together, and nobody's really above anybody ever. That's a perception, and that's ego, and that's a mental game that people play. But the truth is, we're all human, and when things go wrong in this world to the scale that they're going wrong at this moment, it doesn't matter what your political preference or your sexual preference or your religious preference is. It's affecting all of us. So I don't see any kind of status in that regard. We're all being affected. So this is a time to really clear space to create in new ways and imagine yourself being authentic, especially in the places you feel most invalidated and unable to be yourself, because those are the places, to me, are very toxic. I can't do it myself. I'm not good at faking it. Most of you already know that. So it's really, really interesting. And then on my site of karmictools.com, we have the divinations page where we pull a card for the full moon and the new moon. And this card that was so interesting with the Aquarius new moon that we had February 2nd. Now today's the 18th, full moon in Leo. For the new moon, we pulled number 1 in the Tao Oracle, which is a yang, active, divine, masculine. It's the number 1. It's called the creative. Okay, so it's the creative force. And then it just so happens that I pulled for the Leo full moon, number 2, the receptive, passive, yin, divine, feminine. So it's suggesting it is time to release the ego and allow and receive, which is an inner reflection. So we're really balancing this masculine-feminine dynamic, oh my God, on so many levels. So many different planetary alignments are supporting this. And the big, gigantic cycles are supporting this, because this is just life according to Kelly. This is my opinion. I believe that within the 26,000-year cycle, which is officially what the 2012 thing is, that we've spent the last 13,000 doing this male-dominated, patriarchal, do, push, force my will kind of thing, and it's not sustainable. And now we've crossed the line, and we're coming back around to divine feminine, where we create and we cultivate. We create a space so that something can grow and live and work with the other plants and animals nearby. That kind of cooperation is what is natural for this world. It's not natural to have constant domination the way that it's gone on for so long. So we're pulling that back in, and then all these little micro levels and macro levels are aligning the divine masculine, divine feminine. So it's happening within us, where we're learning how much we really have to do for ourselves in the masculine, forward motion, proactive way, and how much we need to trust the universe to bring in that perfect little piece that we can't do on our own, that we have to clear a space and trust that it's going to come in, and then allow spirit to guide it in for us. That's receptive. That's the divine feminine way of creating. And God knows we can't have one without the other. When we're creating life itself, we need both elements to create anything. And so that's where things have gotten really dead and dormant in a lot of ways, is because we're not doing both in a balanced way. So Venus and Mars are divine masculine, divine feminine planets in the sky. They've gotten together, and they're going to get together again in Aries. So get ready for a clean slate where this masculine-feminine dynamic is concerned. And whether it's happening within you or around you, it's still happening. So you want to tap in and, again, set your intention. That's all you can really do at this point is align with your own heart and mind and get that alignment, which is another Leo Aquarius thing. It's head and heart getting in an alignment. A full moon is in opposition. The sun is across the street from the moon there, and they're pulling on each other. So there's this middle ground that creates a compromise and a balance, but it's hard to maintain. So that's why there's such extreme emotions around a full moon very often. Not all the time, but often that's what happens. And so we do swing from these other-directed Aquarius to self-directed Leo, and we're bouncing back and forth until we find that middle ground. And that's unique to everybody. You know, it's whatever feels right and is productive for you. But this is a really juicy time to be done with a lot of ego dramas and past life dramas and family dramas and things that are not relevant to stabilizing your life right now. They're just not relevant. They're distractions. And they've got you thinking that priorities, you know, are this when they're really that. So you want to get as clear as possible. And there's a couple of things that I have to share. You know, that receptive principle is the guiding force for this full moon specifically. So for this week, I want you to think about your self-love process. You know, how much are you really rooted in who you are and are capable of being authentic in all situations? That means home, work, in the street, with strangers, with friends, with people you know and don't know. How authentic can you be? Now, that's not to say discernment isn't a good thing. You know, this is what I'm learning in my old age. I am a keep it real kind of girl, but everybody can't handle the truth. So I have to pick and choose my times when I share truth and who I share that truth with, because it may or may not be relevant at this time. And then we're talking ego gets involved because you want to be heard, you want to be right, you want to be validated, you want to be understood. Again, then we're back to ego. So now you've just got to keep the mantra in mind. Help has to be invited. If somebody wants to understand you better, they need to ask. You know what, I really don't understand why you do this, that, or the other. Invite it. Open up to a dialogue rather than a judgment session. You know, you've heard me use different examples where you just calmly remind someone, you know what, I used to do that, or I used to think that way, or I used to feel that way, but I don't really feel that way anymore. And you can very easily, without a confrontation, without a big fight, set someone straight. That can go so far, and it gains self-respect. You feel better because now your inner self says, oh, God, they stood up, you know, he or she stood up for me. It's great. It validates you. You validating you is the goal here, not any outside validation. So as you do that, you strengthen that core, and that's where that third solar plexus, that third chakra is very important when Leo's kicking, because that's the center point you're coming from. So whatever has held you back thus far, any places that you didn't really believe in yourself, it's time for you to clean out that muckety-muck and any sticky stuff at the bottom. And it's definitely time to get creative. Now, we're having to get creative on practical levels, getting anything done in this world, certainly. But we also have to get more creative, you know, in terms of fun. Part of how humans learn and function is through theater and storytelling and games and playing. And that's what ultimately Leo brings, is that playful spirit that's just open and experimental and willing to try new things and fearless, just utterly fearless. It's that courage. The heart of a lion is no joke. And when they're clear and they're clean about it, they serve the community, the Aquarian community, and that's the truth of it. I did find a little note here somewhere, too, because it said when you serve self, it may or may not serve others. But when you serve your community, you always benefit as well. So that's kind of the dynamic with Leo Aquarius that we have to keep in mind and recognize any kind of defense mechanism that makes you go to keeping things really, really surface and never getting down to the meat of the thing. Because the truth is, a lot of the Leo people I know postpone and they put things off because they just can't face them, don't want to deal with them. But guess what? They don't go away. So you can postpone and avoid, and delay, but you're never going to get out of it. It's just going to take you in a big circle, and if that circle takes 10 or 20 or 50 years, then that's just how long it takes. But you eventually have to face you. and that's the ultimate truth about it. So gaining your strength, using this full moon to clean out any sticky stuff at the bottom is going to be really useful. I'm burning fire, so I'm taking it on for the team here. We are going to do a major, major release of anything that no longer serves that truth of playful, yummy, delicious, we're all in this together, let's get it together and serve the Aquarian community in a more bright and cheerful way. It's another Leo-ism there. So we have a lot. And then I have a couple of things. Really good questions came from Pam Youngins, who has North Point Astrology. Share full moon questions go like this. Do I have the courage to take risks and to follow my heart? Or am I waiting for others to accept and approve before I move forward? Do I have the self-confidence I need to live a fully authentic life? Or am I yielding to the pressure of my peers and trying to fit in so that I can feel a sense of belonging? Am I waiting for others to bring me happiness, or have I realized that I need to be proactive in creating it for myself? And how can I go about bringing more joy into my life? How can I move beyond drama and reactivity and learn to approach life with more humor? How can I convert fear into laughter? Okay, these are excellent, excellent questions for the full moon because, again, we're at that final degree. So anything that's really holding you back, this is your chance to release it once and for all, and for a very long time. I don't know how many years go by before we get 29-degree full moons like this 6 months in a row, but I'm sure it's some years. So this is a chance to really, really clean that out and truly move beyond the drama and redefine self-confidence for yourself and activate that courage to move through centered in you. Your true spirit is that unique piece that the community desperately needs. So as you're moving through and asking yourself these deeper questions about how much you're doing on your own and how much do you rely on outer confirmation for, the Leo full moon is going to shine a light in that corner. And we have some serious activations rolling through this week. I want to make sure we get covered so that you know what's happening. But the weekly forecast covers it in detail. But just yesterday, the sun linked up with Neptune, and it's doing its final degrees in Aquarius. So what we have here is all the personal planet, well, not all, but Mercury, Mars makes it rare. Okay, Sun, Moon, and Mercury are pretty close together. They generally run the same tracks. But then Mars and Venus have a little bit longer cycles. So when they line up with the little guys and the big guys, that means, again, your divine feminine, divine masculine aspects of your being are getting engaged, and that's a little bigger than how you think and how you feel, which is what the Moon and Mercury are all about. So what we have here is what Wendy from, what is her? Oh, I can't think of her website, but she called it a rolling conjunctions because all these little guys are going to move through the last degrees of Aquarius and the first degrees of Pisces together. So all I want you aware of is that's a huge ending, wrapping it up for the year kind of energy, okay? So that's pretty big, and that's getting our thinking and our feelings in alignment. Mars is getting us active with it. It's saying, okay, now that you've changed your mind and now that you've had a change of heart, what are you going to do about it? And as that moves through Aquarius, Pisces in those last degrees and first degrees, later, like I said, Mars is going to link up with Venus in Aries. And if I'm not mistaken, that could be the first time it's done that since the retrograde a year or so ago. So this is another kind of test or reminder. Something could come up to remind you how you have activated a completely new identity to the minimum tune of 8 years. I mean, that's a minimum. But there's a big 20-year cycle that's culminated now. 19 years is what the North Node, South Node dynamic is all about. And that has shifted now. The last 18 months it was in Capricorn, now North Node was, and now it's moving to Sag. So we're really developing the story and our truth and how we move through based on what we believe. You're going to invest in whatever you believe is the right thing. Now, it's getting that little belief system in check and make sure that it's truly serving you for the bigger scale. So we have this, linking up with the Neptune piece of this, because I want to put something on your mind as well. There's two things that have been going on for years that are going to continue, but in new signs, bringing new lessons, bringing new energy, and bringing other activations to the forefront. And that is the Neptune Chiron, which was part of the healing trinity that we dealt with all through Aquarius. Well, Chiron just hit Pisces, and next year Neptune hits Pisces as well. And it's going to spend 14 years there while Chiron spends 8 years there. So the healing trinity is getting extended And that's pretty juicy because this is a huge, huge healing of our consciousness, essentially. What we are making moves on in the world and how well we are integrating the new technology and the new paradigms and the new concepts. Once you have a global family versus a local family, that dynamics change. So that little piece is still going on. And then guess what else? We've been working with that 2008 to 2010, Saturn and Uranus and Virgo and Pisces. Well, that's still continuing because Saturn's going to be in Libra till October 2012, and Uranus is in Aries for the next 7 years. So this whole 2-year period, again, extends that opposition, extends that push-pull between the old and the new, between expanding and consolidating, between holding a structure and breaking free from a structure. All of that theme is going to continue, but the essence and the energy and, like I said, the lessons are switching from human and divine, Virgo, Pisces, and how we can honor our duality because it is what it is and we're here and you better figure out how to work it, into the Aries Libra dynamic of self versus other and this piece of getting the action going. Okay, now we've done a major completion and we have to reboot. And again, we don't really know the results yet. We don't know the outcome or the end piece just yet. So we have to walk by faith, and that's what Aries, the clean slate of the zodiac, is like a big reset button, and we're doing that right now. So each lunation gives us a chance to calibrate on a personal level, and then the big cycles that take place help us as well. And next week, I just want to remind you that the couple of big things is the fact that Mars is joining the little guys, but the third, 3 of 3, there were 3 activations where Jupiter in Aries squared off with Pluto in Capricorn. So this, again, is the new 12-year story getting started, but Pluto says keep it clean. Keep it clean or you're going to have some serious challenges. So the note that I have in the weekly forecast says these two energies are potent by themselves, but when challenging each other like this, permanent change is underway. So you want to get your vote in, and that's technically the 25th, next Friday when we talk. Today we have Venus in Capricorn joining Pluto. So that's pretty juicy as well. And we have because it's in Capricorn, it's squaring Saturn. So our reality is getting a test on where our values lie, and the story is getting a test on how clean and true the story actually is. So, again, with the permanent change has to do with Pluto being involved. Saturn's involved. That change constitutes about 30 years, so it's permanent enough. It's close enough that you want to definitely set your intentions. And squares do push you out of comfort zone into new territory, so that's essentially so you cannot get out on your own. You need this friction or the push. So keep your motivations pure. Avoid getting hurt by the karmic debris, okay, because there's lots of that. Knowing your own truth and story helps. And just really using Pluto, the purifier. Jupiter represents justice and laws and is the social planet, so we're looking for changes on a social level. This is bigger, you know what I mean? This isn't so personal, but if you have a lot of Aries, Libra, or Cancer, Capricorn, then you're going to feel this one. That means get your story straight and be ready to move in the world and stand on it, okay? And the only way you can be authentic and stand on your truth is if it's clean and if it serves the community on some level. On some level, it's really going to be useful if you can clean that up. And we have all this support for adjusting our individual selves. Like I said, with these little guys zipping around the end of the zodiac, you should be feeling a completion. Think about the annual cycle from spring equinox to spring equinox. What have you actually gotten done in the last year? And give yourself credit so that you can build on that. I gotcha. And that's where we're at for this week. Like I said, we've got a lot of little activations, but a lot of them, and they're all conjunctions, which means they're initiations. So as much as we're ending, we're initiating. Over the course of this next week, you're going to get your motivations clean, you're going to release a couple of ego issues, and you're going to prepare to build something going forward. So just tune in, recognize the last 6 months for what they are, which was a big clearing and completion on an individual level, so that come spring equinox and we hit that Libra full moon, you're out in the world doing it with other people and having a good time about it and building something useful for everybody involved, okay? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Lisa said the I Ching show's taking a 2-week break, but we're sending them lots of light and love wherever they are. And the Mercury retrograde for the year through the fire signs, that's a free call that's ready now. If anybody didn't get it or didn't register, let me know. And the next one will be next month for the Uranus moving into Aries. We're going to set our intentions for the next 7 years of